Hello everyone, my name is Asavari. I welcome you all to this exclusive seminar on behalf of investmentguruindia.com. And today we have with us Mr. Chirag Mehta, Senior Fund Manager with more than 14 years of experience in the field of financial markets. Mr. Mehta specializes in the field of alternative investment strategies, where he currently manages four funds, which largely include gold fund, multi-asset fund, and equity funds of funds. So welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So, without any further delay, let's start with our first question. Sir, first of all, I would like to know your view on current Indian market and the impact it will have due to stimulus package announced by Prime Minister Modi. So, and also how will it affect the gold as a commodity?
Sure. Uh, I will run through a few slides which will give out the current macro background, and therefore we can take further questions post that.
Sure.
So I will just share my screen now and So, as our topic today is investment opportunity in gold and way forward, I will just run a few background slides in terms of how the macro is shaping up and what we see gold as a primary asset class. How do we see gold? What is the role of gold in one's portfolio? So, So if you see, there have been many uncertain times that we face, like today, which is beyond uncertainty, because such times we have never seen before. But time and again, we have seen volatility in stock markets, in economic conditions. There are geopolitical tensions. So there have been such episodes in the past. If you see, last 26 years since 1994, when the Harshad Mehta scam broke out, there have been 17 such dislocations from a financial standpoint. So it's not something new, but current economic conditions are much beyond something we have seen. But financial markets have braced through such kind of volatilities before. So the question to all the viewers is, how safe is your hard-earned wealth amid such uncertain conditions? Because time and again, every few years, which people call it a black swan event, which is generally not a black swan, because if it was a black swan, it was kind of a one in a century kind of event, right? But stock markets have seen, be it the global financial crisis, be it the 2001 9/11 attacks, or be it SARS episode of 2003, or be it the dot-com bust. There have been many such episodes where my financial markets have raced through a period of uncertainty and volatility, right? So if you see today's environment, from an economy standpoint, something like this happened 100 years back when the influenza outbreak happened, right? Current projections have been very dire, and many of the economists are cutting their forecast for GDP growth. Like if you see, India GDP growth was poised in a positive territory, just marginally positive, about 1%. Now many economists are calling for a negative growth rate this year, right? Maybe 3-4% negative growth rate is what many of them are calling for. But across the globe, we are seeing various negative forecasts for GDP growth this year. Like the world on an average will be a -3% GDP growth on a real basis. Uh, like what I spoke about the black swan events, these are not really black swan from a financial standpoint. We have seen many such episodes before. Gold, if you see, have enjoyed this bull run. If you see, right from the crisis broke out, we have seen a big jump in gold prices. Uh, if I have to see the long-term story, it still looks like a bull market in gold, a very long-term bull market. Uh, we had seen some correction post the rally that we'd seen after the global financial crisis, and then it peaked at about $1,900 and fell to about close to $1,000 mark, and now inching closer to the all-time highs. If you want to understand gold's long-term bull market is really in terms of a real terms. Because if you see, this is a chart which shows that how gold has performed vis-a-vis commodities as a basket. And over the long term, if you see, it's been in a bull market vis-a-vis commodities. So it really says that it's been a hedge against commodities to an extent. And in a real sense, it has preserved its purchasing power, right? Uh, this, according to me, is a real way to test gold's bull market. Gold is a monetary asset, right? And it was used as money maybe for more than 5,000 years. And post be dealing as a form of money, if you see, still gold has kept on appreciating vis-a-vis the currencies, right? Be it any currency, be it US dollar, be it INR, be it yen, be it euro, it's kept on appreciating. The red line is the line where you see gold in INR terms. It has seen a significant appreciation in INR terms. But if you see vis-a-vis any other currency, gold has appreciated by 98, 99% vis-a-vis most of the currencies, or most of the currencies have depreciated by 98, 99% as compared to gold or against gold. So gold has really helped you in times of currency depreciations. Time and again, you will see in newspapers, in various media outlets, things about demand, supply, inflow, outflows, central bank buying, selling. According to me, all this is noise. These factors don't have any impact on gold prices beyond the short term. These don't really determine the trend in gold prices. Then what does really do impact gold markets? One thing to understand is the only constant in gold market is gold supply. Whenever a producer digs gold out of ground, they have to manufacture it, produce it, refine it, and supply it in the gold markets. They don't have any other choice. Unlike today's times when mines were also shut because people could not go out and work in mines. And therefore, this first thing has been challenged by the current uncertainty, the current pandemic. But otherwise, the only constant in the gold market is the supply. But how does it, so if you see whatever gold has been produced so far is still there. So in some way, it is kind of a supply for the gold market, right? And what happens is when economic goes through cycles of booms and bust, whenever there is a bear market, there is a fear, there is need to own cash. But if you see central banks continue to debase currencies in a way by printing more money in times of stress to support the economy. And therefore, holding cash during such times becomes prohibitive. And therefore, people go in search for assets like liquid real assets like gold. And therefore, you see a lot of buying happening during such times for assets like gold. So this is the essential backdrop that determines how gold markets will move. And current backdrop, if you see, where economy has been going through a really bad time because of the pandemic and economic growth rates like we saw in the previous slides that have been marked negative for this year. Uh, uh, this is going to leading many people to move towards assets like gold because central banks again are printing a lot of money, cutting rates, and holding cash doesn't become a good alternative, and therefore people move to gold. So as we've seen, growth rates cut. Even for India, we have seen a sharp decline in growth rates. Central banks have been trying to stimulate, like in after 2008, they did 4.5 trillion in stimulus. This time they have already done more than 5 trillion. 4 trillion was still March, but now if they have incrementally done more, so the figure is around 5 to 7 trillion in that range. India was weaker before COVID, has been slipping further. Uh, uh, it is kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. The COVID was that kind of event because we were already limping and slowing down significantly. COVID has had significant adverse impact on the economy, and the growth rates that we have seen will further slip down into negative territories. Capacity utilization in India has been running very, very low, even before COVID. After COVID, even it will slip further. So there is no room for more capex. Capacity utilization has to come above 80, 85%. before any capex really in a meaningful manner we will see in the economy. But if you see, many of them are hopeful for next year. Next year, people are bracing for a V-shaped recovery. It may or may not happen because estimates of how this pandemic will evolve is anywhere between 2 months to 1 year's time frame, because many say that as summers come out in developed markets or developed world like Europe and US, the pandemic or the virus will subside. But we have seen many countries which have hot climatic conditions like India, but we are still seeing increasing cases, right? And some hopeful that 6-12 months we will see a vaccine, and therefore that will be the end of coronavirus as we know. So it could be anywhere between 2 months to 1 year kind of uncertainty further before we emerge out of this. But V-shaped recovery, not sure about it, but there will be a demand spike whenever economies open up, and post that, it's going to be a gradual recovery. Equity markets, like you asked, were running at very high valuations even before COVID hit us. So they were in an overvaluation zone, trading in excess of 25 times PE, vis-a-vis average of 18 times. Post the correction, we have seen them slip into average levels. And if they slip further, it could be an attractive level to get into equity markets. Like we saw in SARS or in Lehman crisis, they fell to about 10-12 times PE. So even at 18 times, from that standpoint, they look expensive. But if they happen to move in that zone, that could be an attractive level to buy more equities or increase equity allocation. But given the uncertainty or how economies are shaping up, central banks have acted aggressively by cutting rates. We have seen across the globe, central banks have been cutting rates. And when we see a rate cutting cycle by these central banks or aggressive rate cuts, the opportunity cost of holding gold goes down, and the gold becomes more attractive during such times. And if you see, we are in kind of an era of low negative interest rates. If you see, yesterday Powell mentioned that the economic recovery will be somewhere at the end of 2021, that is next year. Until that time, given that they don't expect recovery till then, they will continue to run an accommodative stance, keep rates low, push in more liquidity. So that all will make gold more attractive. In certain countries, like you see in the chart, in European countries like Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands, the rates on even on a 10-year yield are running negative. Means on a real basis, if you buy those bonds and hold it till maturity, you will end up losing money, meaning you invest, but you have to give money on your investment, not on a return, right? And such kind of time frames are really conducive for gold. One big driver for gold prices is real interest rates. So if you see, whenever real interest rates have been running negative, gold does well. We saw it in 1970s. We saw it in 2008 to 2011 period when we had seen negative interest rates. Gold saw a significant rally, and so is now when interest rates are moving negative. Gold prices is doing well. So if you see, the backdrop is fundamental. The rally that we are seeing in gold prices is fundamental led, and this chart is enough evidence of that. US economy is going through an unprecedented time. The unemployment level is rising significantly. We already saw the numbers print 14% unemployment rate, expected to reach 20% because of the continuing jobless claims being filed with the US government. So never ever in history we have seen so many job losses. This is the time when it's a very unprecedented level of devastation we are seeing on the job front. US is trying to do whatever it takes, right? If you see, the fiscal deficit is going through the roof. They have already done about 18% in terms of negative fiscal or a fiscal deficit of 18%. They are trying to do more stimulus. that will take the R deficit to about 24%, something that we had seen about in 1940s, post the Great Depression of 1930s. Federal Reserve is trying, expanding the balance sheet, putting in more stimulus, trying to buy assets, bonds, junk bonds, ETFs. They're buying everything on earth. And that is what is keeping financial markets supported at higher levels. This is really the essence of what we have seen over the last many years, right? The white line is the US stock market. The red line, if you see, is the Fed balance sheet. And the blue line is the largest four central banks' balance sheet. So if you see, stock markets have been clearly supported or have been moving higher on back of support from these central banks. So as central banks keep printing money, they'll end up in financial markets, and that kept financial markets moving higher. There is certainly a race to devaluation. If you see, central banks have been adding a lot of liquidity, fueling asset markets, and that's causing a disconnect between what the economic fundamentals are and what the market should reflect, right? So economy is at one end, but financial markets are at some other level, right? There has been a significant increase in debt to GDP ratios across countries, be it US, China, Germany, Europe, UK, Japan. They are all looking or having debt to GDP ratios at significantly higher level. And this overhang will ensure that the economies will not recover to the levels that we have seen before. Always, whenever there is more debt in the economies, the growth rates continue to remain suppressed. And what these central banks are doing, how are these governments issuing so much of debt, is because their central banks are just printing money and buying that debt. So if you see, US government debt held by Federal Reserve is about 33%. 1/3 of the debt of US government is held by its own central bank. For Japan, it is even higher number at 43%. So that really tells you that these governments have a captive central bank, and that is making it possible to issue such high levels of debt. There has been increase or shift away from US treasuries into gold. When countries are going berserk in terms of printing a lot of money, cutting rates, people find that gold is a sensible area or an asset where they can park their money, and therefore they are reducing their stakes in US treasuries and increasing in gold. And this really tells you that will history repeat itself? Like every reserve currency, if you see, have lasted for an average of about 100 years. US, if you see, has been running a very high deficit for years together. They have been issuing a lot more debt. The dependence on dollar as a currency for trade has been reducing. So will COVID be the nail in the coffin in terms of reducing the reliance of the world on dollar, and US dollar may cease to be or remain a reserve currency for the world? So that is to be seen. But given that there are no contenders other than the dollar which are stronger, this may take some time, but may not be an impossibility in today's scenario. So in terms of the outlook looks really constructive for gold. If you see, central banks, as I've said, they are cutting rates, real interest rates going down. They have been printing more money. Gold being a currency, in terms of the devaluation we are seeing in vis-a-vis other currencies, gold should really move up in value. This is a very important slide, and investors should look or have a look at this and keep visiting this every time and again. One thing that continues to move on is your cost of living, right? Your spending every year keeps on increasing. Like in 1990, your consumption basket for a year would have costed you about 24,000 rupees. In today's parlance, it translates to 4,27,000 rupees. So that's grown by 10.1% a year. if you see, price of gold was about 3,400 rupees, and today it is 47,000. So you needed 70 units of gold to buy your consumption basket that time. Today you need 91, so it's slightly higher, but it's more or less kept pace, like 10.1% vis-a-vis 9.1% for gold. So it's more or less kept pace, and that is the expected role that you believe that gold will play. Any further increase in gold prices, which is likely, and that will match the 10.1% increase vis-a-vis gold of will nearly match the 10.1%. Equities were, you needed 33 units of Sensex at that time to fulfill your cost of living. Today you need 13. So Sensex has done pretty well, right, in terms of increasing your standard of living. Uh, Although it has done well vis-a-vis your cost of living, but keep in mind that there is a lot of volatility and risk associated with Sensex. It's always going to be a straight line. You need a very long-term horizon, and there will be volatility in prices, like what we are seeing today, right? Sensex was at more than 12,000, or Nifty at 12,000, and today, if you see, it's below 8,900. So there will be times of volatility. In 2008, markets fell by half. So you cannot rely on Sensex completely, because it could be a time when you need money, but it has fallen by half. So you have to take that money with you. So that is a core asset that you can hold, but it's not very reliable, because there is a high volatility associated with that asset class. Fixed deposit, you needed 22 units of fixed deposit in 1990. Today you need 73. So fixed deposit, this is after tax of 30% assumed. So FDs have been a losing proposition for investors. So if you have a lot of money parked in fixed deposit, that's not the area you need to be. You need to keep about 12 to 36 months of your expenses in a asset like FDs. But anything beyond that, you need to split it between Sensex and gold. Why we say 12 to 36 months? Because there could be uncertainty with your cash flows. So in times like these, when there is uncertainty, that core asset will help you tide those tough times. And beyond that, you need to be in well generating asset classes like Sensex and gold, or equities and gold. Like we mentioned that as equities have an associated volatility, but whenever that volatility has come true, like in episodes like 2008, gold has helped a lot in terms of a portfolio. Like equities in 2008 were less minus more than 50%, half in value. Gold was up by 31%. So in times of stress, whenever equities don't work for you, gold will help tide those times as well. So have a split kind of after keeping 12 to 36 months in your safe place, like liquid funds or be it fixed deposits. Rest you can split 80-20 in gold and equities. That's what we'll advise. Uh, so we'll come to the how do you buy gold in terms of what are the best options for you to buy gold later on. But so far, this is the macro backdrop, or what role gold should play in your portfolio. I wanted to portray that scenario. And with that, I'm happy to take questions further, Asavri, so that I can answer all the queries that you have.
Sure, sir. So, sir, my second question actually was going to be, but you already covered that. What is the importance of having gold as an asset class in your portfolio? Like, what should be the percentage that investors should have? Because most of them just go for equity or debt, but they don't know the perfect allocation of this.
Yeah, so what we generally advise is 10 to 15% allocation. So if you keep that 12 to 36 months money aside, it will boil down to that 80-20 ratio will boil down to that 10 to 15% allocation. And we have hard numbers that tell you that somewhere between 10 and 15% allocation to gold helps you to augment returns, at the same time reduce your risk significantly, right? So if you had gold in your portfolio during such times when we are seeing losses in equity markets, if you see last 1 year return from gold is 47%. So that really helps when you're seeing losses in equity markets, and time and again it gets shown that. And there is a myth that people have that gold doesn't give returns. Because if you see comparable returns of equity and gold for last 10 years, 20 years, they have been very, very comparable to gold. Slightly lower than equities, but still handsome returns or decent returns, I may say. And that helps you to cope up with your standard of or cost of living, and that doesn't hamper like what fixed deposits do in terms of reduce your purchasing power. They will at least maintain your purchasing power.
Okay. So my third question would be, like, may I have your insights on this precious metal like gold? We are already talking gold, silver on fundamental
Sure.
perspective.
So talking about fundamentals, if I have to see fundamentals today that they are shaping up, I have to go back to 1971. So I've been tracking gold for more than 15 years, and I've studied a bit of history of gold. So if I have to see today's fundamentals, I have to go back as long as 1971. That is when the U.S. Took the dollar off the gold standard. President Nixon took dollar off the gold standard. Until before then, the dollar was linked to gold. And when they took off gold off the gold dollar of the gold standard, uh, gold prices went up from $35 an ounce to $170 over the next few years, because gold prices, they were printing a lot of currencies and didn't have that gold backing to it, right? And as soon as they said we cannot run this Ponzi scheme further, what happened is they delinked the dollar of the gold standard, and gold was allowed to reprice to a level that what it should have been. And we saw over next few years, gold prices rallied from $35 to $170. Even today, if you see, central banks have been cutting rates, have been printing a lot of money. Like US already, if you see their balance sheet expanded by more than $2 trillion. So is happening across the globe, be it Australia, be it Japan, be it Europe. They have been printing significant amount of money to support the economy, and therefore they are debasing their currencies. So if everyone is debasing their currencies, what is that asset that people will move into to protect their purchasing power from this debasement of currencies? Because gold cannot be printed by these central banks at will. The supply of gold is very, very constrained. So that is one asset where supply will not increase and demand will increase, and therefore gold should reprice going forward. So I think the fundamental backdrop is very, very positive for gold. For next few years, we will see good appreciation in gold prices given the fundamentals that we are seeing today. And so today, in a way, gold seems underpriced relative to currencies, and therefore gold, we are very positive on gold prices going forward.
And what about silver as a commodity, sir?
From an investor perspective, I will say that one should avoid silver, because if you see, more than 65% of the usage of silver comes from industrial use. And today, when economies are not doing well or growth rates are not expected to be so robust, the industrial use will come down. And therefore, from a demand supply standpoint, though there is some deficit in terms of supply of silver, but again, the demand will not look so good. And therefore, from a demand supply perspective, even still, you can have some allocation to silver, but I would say keep it to a very minimum level and have gold, because it really acts as a portfolio diversifier and a store of value. And therefore, from a portfolio perspective, gold suits better than silver.
Okay, that's perfect. So my next question is, what will be the impact of global liquidity on gold, silver, crude, in general, on the commodities on asset class?
Yeah. So at one side, we are seeing a lot of debasement of currency, a lot of printing of currencies by these central banks. At the other side, the demand for these commodities have been coming down because economic growth is coming down. So if you see, for example, in crude, there isn't much demand because there are no planes flying, no cars being driven. And at the same time, there is a glut of supply. So in terms of crude, we don't expect a runaway appreciation. Given the liquidity sloshing around, these commodities will get repriced to a certain extent because they are real assets, and there is a cost of production associated for bringing those assets into real, right? For example, silver, you need to dig in from the ground. There is a cost associated for creating that mine and producing that metal. Even for crude, this is once in a lifetime thing that we have seen. I think it will go down to our grandchildren that we had seen negative prices of crude in our lifetime. So something very unprecedented that we have seen, though it may not remain at those levels. It may bounce back a bit, but we don't see a runaway appreciation in crude nor in silver. Silver will be helped because of gold prices moving higher, and sometimes, as it is called a stepsister of gold, it will benefit because of some investment flows will move towards that. But beyond that, so if you have to analyze silver, it is half copper, half gold. Copper will remain low because the demand for industrial commodities will be not be so robust. Uh, there is impairment of balance sheets happening at the government level, at the corporate level, at the individual level, and therefore the ability to consume won't be so high, and therefore demand for such industrial uses will not be so great going forward, at least for next couple of years. So from that perspective, I mean, industrial commodity prices will remain subdued to an extent. We don't see a runaway appreciation in commodity prices.
Okay. So can you please elaborate on the concept of quantum fund, like its track record and the philosophy behind the fund? So what exactly it is?
Sure. The Quantum Gold Fund lets you efficiently buy gold, right? I term it as a best financial innovation that we have seen over the last 20 years, because what it does is it helps a retail investor buying very low denomination of gold at very wholesale prices, at prices at which tons and tons of gold get exchanged between a gold producer, a gold miner, and a bullion bank. That is the efficiency that gold ETFs bring to the retail level. So if you've seen the gold market, the depending on the place from where you buy gold and the denomination you buy gold, the prices will vary. So if you buy from a very trusted place which has a brand name of it, a brand name, if you buy from such kind of place, the higher the premium you pay. The lower the denomination you buy, the higher the premium you pay. That is how the gold market functions. But gold ETFs gives you exposure to 24 karat gold at prices which are very, very wholesale. You don't end up paying such high premiums that are associated with buying physical gold. At the same time, each and every unit is backed by physical gold. So gold ETFs are having gold as a backing, and that is 24 karat gold, and you don't pay higher prices. So from portfolio perspective, it's an excellent way to buy. They are very, very liquid. You can get in and get out at any point of time. They are listed on stock markets, uh, and you don't have the hassles of storing gold, insuring gold. All the gold held by the gold ETF is stored in secured vaults and is completely insured. And therefore, from a investor perspective, they don't have to worry about purity. They don't have to worry about liquidity. They don't have to worry about storage. They don't have to worry about insurance. So that is really a game changer. I think investors should move more. See, there is no alternative to jewelry when it comes to wearing jewelry. You cannot wear a gold ETF certificate, right? But when it comes to investment, people need to bifurcate what is the gold I am buying for, whether it is for jewelry or whether it is wearing purposes or whether it is for investment. And if it is for investment, if you're buying jewelry, you're doing a disservice to yourself. You're buying a very, very inefficient form when you're buying gold through jewelry. So you need to buy gold ETFs or gold funds. Gold funds invest in gold ETF. So if you are not used to buying like you do in stock markets, like buying shares in stock markets, gold ETFs are available in similar way. But if you are not really in tune in buying on the stock markets, you can opt for the gold savings funds, which help you to buy the gold ETF through the gold saving fund. And if you see returns of gold funds and gold ETFs will be in line with what gold returns will be. So you get the perfect gold exposure and in the right way.
Okay, so in short, you are saying the investor should know the purpose, like for what they are buying the gold for, and if they want to invest for invest for investment purpose or wealth creation, then ETF is the best option if they know where to buy and what to buy exactly, or else there is an option of mutual funds.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, that's really insightful for the investors who don't know about much about this in types of investments. So, sir, moving on, there are a few questions on behalf of our viewers. So,
Mhm.
it would be great if you give your insight to this.
Sure.
Okay, so here, let me begin. The first question is from Mr. Ankit. He's from Mumbai. So,
Mhm.
he asked, does the fund actually buy gold and manages AUM? And how is the risk of this fund managed?
Yeah, so as I said, each and every unit of the fund is backed by physical gold. What happens is before any new units are created, there is gold bought. So there is a mechanism where there is an entity called authorized participant. They will deliver the gold to us and take units. So whenever there is demand from investors on the exchange, they will buy those units on the exchange. And when these authorized participants see that demand increasing, they will create more units by issuing the gold to us. So that is how we manage the risk. We don't take a risk on prices. There is first gold coming in, and then at that rate, new units are issued. So there is no price risk that we take, and this is a very efficient mechanism in terms of structure that allows to track gold prices very efficiently. And that is why if you see the tracking error, for example, of our quantum gold ETF is very low. Since inception, the tracking error on an absolute basis is 0.005%. That really tells you that the tracking error is very minuscule. And if you see, the returns have broadly been in line with what the physical gold market prices have been. So,
Okay.
so this is how we manage the risk.
Okay, so here we have second question from Mr. Rishabh. He's from Indore.
Mhm.
So he says, how is tax treatment for the gold fund, which is via physical gold or equity investment?
Sure. So physical gold taxation and taxation of gold ETF is one and the same. Up
Okay.
till 3 years, it is short-term capital gains tax, which is taxed as per your tax bracket. Above 3 years, it is 20% with indexation. So 20% with indexation will generally boil down to about 8 to 10% tax for investors, given the kind of inflation that we have seen or uh, in the economy. And therefore, from a long-term perspective, it's 20% with indexation, which will boil down to about 8 to 10% tax.
Okay.
And of equity funds, as you know, up to 1 year, it's short-term capital gains tax. And above 1 year, it is long-term capital gains tax, which is 10%.
Okay. So, sir, my next question from our viewer would be, he says like he wants to start an SIP for his daughter, for future of his daughter. So, can he invest in the name of minor?
Yes, when you can invest in the name of minor, and
Mm-hmm.
this is the excellent way. People generally want to accumulate gold for future weddings or for their daughter's marriage, that kind of purposes. And they generally, what they have been doing is buying small pieces of jewelry for that, right? And that is very inefficient form of doing it. When you buy jewelry, you pay making charges. Uh, there is risk of purity, and when you sell, you don't get that making charges back. You have to pay breaking charges or melting charges, right? So there are premiums associated, there are making charges, and when you sell, there is melting charges, and the gold rate that you get is not the gold rate. There will be a small deduction on the gold rate as well. So that makes it a very inefficient form of buying or accumulating gold. Gold ETFs help you in that. You don't pay high premiums. You don't have to worry about purity. You buy at the ongoing gold rate. You sell at the ongoing gold rate. So if you accumulate your gold through a gold ETF or a gold saving fund, that is very efficient form of doing so. And when you want to, you can do SIP as well. You can do an SIP and accumulate gold over like 5, 10, 15, 20 years through a gold saving fund. And therefore, whenever there is a need to convert into gold jewelry, you can just sell that and buy the piece of jewelry from the money that you get. So that is, I think, a very efficient way of doing or accumulating gold.
What is the minimum SIP that you can do in this gold fund?
Minimum SIP is 500 rupees.
Okay, it starts with 500 rupees and
Yes.
so on.
Yeah, there's no maximum amount. You can do as much as you want.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Chirag. I guess that's all questions I have for now. And I really appreciate the time you have taken out from your schedule. So, and let me really tell you, this session was really, insightful. We actually got to know new perspective of how to invest, because usually the common investors, they just buy jewelry or physical gold form. So they most of them are not aware of these options. So it would be really good insights that it will help them in making better decisions. So hopefully I can come up with new questions and more questions, and we can get back in touch. So
Sure,
thank you for
absolutely.
joining in.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, stay safe. Thank you.
You too.